The problem with the notion of the will being corrupt is that there is no longer any sort of religion. It's done. Yeah, it's over. It's over. Why? Because if the will is corrupt, it means that nobody on the planet now knows or has a way of knowing who are Muhammad's true successors. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الأئمة والمهديين وسلم تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الأئمة والمهديين وسلم تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الأئمة والمهديين وسلم تسليما. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters, my dear working brothers and sisters who are here with me and working night and day to reach out to the people of the earth in all of the different languages. Arabic on our satellite station and on our Arabic social media platforms, in English and German and French and Urdu and Spanish and every other language pretty much that's out there. Slovenian even, Slovakian. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your work. I appreciate you guys being out here and joining me tonight. Usually what takes place is that the believers here, when communicating with believers and non-believers alike, through the channel and on social media, they get a lot of questions that they want asked to me. And I figured that this time it would be a good idea perhaps that we film this interaction, the Q&A process, the process of the believers bringing forward those questions to me so that we can benefit as many people as possible. So let's start off with a sister that's really dear to me and to the entire community, somebody who basically she migrated all the way from Pakistan and joined me in Egypt when she was only 18 years old, and she's been with me ever since. My dear sister Ali Halal. So tell me, Ali, how's things going?
Thank you so much, Al-Sadiq.
God bless you.
So things are going quite wonderfully in our outreach department in English, because people from different parts of the world are hearing about the call, hearing about your truth, and they are absolutely amazed and fascinated, and they are racing to know more and to be a part of the movement. They are from different cultures and nationalities, and yet they're finding that common ground with the seventh covenant that you're presenting to the world. So it's a wonderful experience to see that and to witness that. There is a question that some people have brought up, which is that many of the believers around the world, they will say that they acknowledge your truth and they see that you are the messenger of God. They hear your call for the support of the cause and they want to be a part of it. So they say, I want to support Al-Sadiq with everything I have. Then they ask that they do have expectations upon them by different family members, husbands, wives, parents, and they wonder how to reconcile that duty that they have, that they believe is also a divine duty. However, they know that you're also calling them for support, and they would like to know what they should do in response.
Yeah, so I think that this question, it's an age-old question, and I think that the believers in every single day and age, from the time of Adam all the way till now, they've had to tackle with how to deal with this inner battle that they're facing inside. Like you said, on the one hand, you know, they're hearing the call of the Imam of the time, the messenger of the time. You know, he's the voice of John the Baptist out in the wilderness, the voice of Jesus, the voice of Imam Al Hussain alayhi salam, as he's calling out, is there anybody who will support me? And at the same time, you know, they woke up one day, you know, they found the call. Before that day, they were living their normal life. These people, they have wives, they have husbands, they have children, they have jobs, they have mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, family members, and they don't know what to do. Jesus, alayhi salam, one of the greatest prophets who ever lived on the face of the earth, he said, whoever loves their mother or their father or their son or their daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And so he made a clear stance. He also said that he has come into this world, all right, to set father against son, daughter against mother. And he didn't mean by that that he would encourage rebellion against parents or disrespect to parents or cutting ties with family members. But he meant that he came with a heavy matter. The call of God, the religion of God, is a heavy matter, and not everybody is going to end up following the truth. And so that will ultimately put the person sometimes in a place of opposition. With family members opposing or not wanting to continue the journey or share that path with the believer. You also have the example of Imam Al Hussain alayhi salam. Imam Al Hussain, he basically received a room full of pledges of allegiance. And they were handwritten by the people of Kufa, of Iraq. And they called Imam Al Hussain alayhi salam and his family all the way out to them. And they would night and day say in their homes, we wish that the relief would come, we wish that the oppression would go away, we wish that the family of Muhammad would rule, we wish that God's messenger would appear. Oh, how we wish we were with you. May our lives be your ransom, O son of Rasulullah. They would say all of these things, right? But when it came down to the time, to the moment that they were waiting for, and Imam Al Hussain alayhi salam came out with his caravan, and he brought forward his family members, trusting that he would receive support. What took place? He had to knock on the believers and the people that had written him letters. He had to knock on their doors, and he was met not with support, but rather with ugly excuses, as Imam Ahmad al-Hassan calls it in his books and in his writings. They said to Imam al-Hussain, we believe in you, we want to support you, but we're unable to because we're afraid that the tyrant's going to attack our home. We're afraid that they're going to kill our family members. We don't know who's going to work and support our family members if we go out to battle with you and we die, God forbid, right? So all of these excuses in the end was what out of this struggle, that this question that you brought forward is posing, right? That the believer is struggling with inside. That choice between serving family, right, and dunya, and what my current life is versus serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we remember also the story of Jesus and the man who came to him and he said, Jesus, I want to be one of your disciples. I want to follow you. And Jesus looks at him and he says it very plainly. He says to him, first, sell all of your property, take all of your riches and give it to the poor. Then come and follow me. And by Jesus saying these words, the face of the man changed and he retracted, unable to commit or pay the price of what it takes to go forward and support the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He withdraws and he abandons his mission. He abandons his stance. And so people are in between two choices. And Jesus, after the man withdrew and walked away, Jesus says what? He said that a man cannot serve two masters, meaning money and the dunya is a master and God is a master. You can't have God as a master if you're also going to take the dunya as a master too. And so that's what the believers here, we all had to face that choice. Even myself, when I heard the calling of Imam Al Hussain, we all had to make that choice. And that choice is between serving God in hopes of changing this filthy, nasty world and changing the condition that it is in currently today, where we're about to go into a nuclear war, where we see poor people and homeless people filled in the streets. If we want to change something, the change has to start with us, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the Prophet said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not change what is with a people until they change what is within their own selves. So unless and until we as believers are willing to put God first and to sacrifice everything, all things, from the least valuable, such as money, right, to the most valuable, such as family and our own reputation, in order to support the truth, we will never enjoy a divine just state, and we will never be worthy of the prophets and the messengers that we claim we love so much, and that we go into the synagogues and into the churches and into the mosques, remembering their names and trying to honor them. So in terms of the asker of the question, or the believers that ask this, it's all about the level of commitment. What level of commitment do they want to have towards this call? We have here, if you believe that this is the call of the Qaim, if you truly believe that, and you pledged allegiance to that, if you believe that I am the Qaim of the family of Muhammad, that all of the prophets and the messengers wished to be with and wanted to return to this world to support, if you truly believe that, then there shouldn't be any price that you wouldn't pay in order to come and support me and to help me carry this burden. And Jesus said it. He said, whoever wants to follow me has to be willing to carry their cross on their back like me, right? Yes. So that's the thing.
And thank you so much for that. I would like to testify also that there is no worthier cause than this, and that all of us here are absolutely happy that we're supporting this and you. There's no other way to support God other than to come and support you. And we know that. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good to see you, Hashem.
It's great to be with you.
I always enjoy watching your TikTok live. People don't know it, but I'm actually in there a lot. I listen to the conversations. I'm really proud of your performance.
So from you to all your knowledge and your sharing of this, and we share it with the people.
God bless you.
I have a couple of questions.
Tell me.
So the question that I had from the public, it's been asked multiple times, is how do you do istikhara? What's the right way of doing it? And how does God talk to us? How does He answer?
So there's many ways of doing istikhara, actually. The Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, they mentioned a variety of ways of doing istikhara. One of the ways that you can do istikhara is by taking a book, usually the Quran or a holy book, and you randomly opening it up with your question in your heart, and you look at the page, right? And the first verse that your eyes fall on, that should inspire you with the answer that you are seeking, right? You should never do istikhara unless you're in a state of confusion. So that's the number one rule. In order for istikhara to work, okay, they have a saying, they say, il-khira and il-hira, right? Which means that what? You only make istikhara if you're confused, okay? When you are confused and you're seeking God to give you the response, then you can use a variety of methods. One of them is the opening up of the Quran, and that actually breaks down into different methods. So one method is you open it up and then you flip 7 pages backwards and you count 7 verses down and you take that. Other forms of istikhara, you just open it up and it's whatever verse your eyes fall on. They do even sell, which work too, these little istikhara books, the Istikhara of Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam. And you know that most people that are Shia or have grown up in Iraq or Iran, they have seen these little books being sold. And actually, they also found a book that was small like that, which was called the Book of Mary. And it was the same type of concept. It was written inside of it, all of these little answers that were in the affirmative or in the negative, and it was used in that way by the early Christians. They would ask the book a question or ask God a question, open up the book, and they would find the answer there. Another form of istikhara is that you basically could pray 2 rak'ahs, and you, before praying those rak'ahs, write on a piece of paper yes, and on another piece of paper no. And you place those 2 pieces of paper underneath your prayer mat. And you shuffle them up, or you make like 5, 6, 7, 10 of them. Half of them yes, half of them no. You place them underneath your prayer mat. You pray 2 rak'ahs. After you're done, you ask once again God the question, and then you randomly put your hand underneath the prayer mat and you pull out the answer that you're seeking. And yet, another way of istikhara is that you can take 10 believers, okay, 10 believing men and women, and you bring them together and you pose to them your problem. Shall I marry this man? Shall I, do this, take this job offer, or whatever it is that you're asking? And then based on the majority's answer, then you go with that, okay? And that's the type of istikhara where it is believed that, God will inspire the hearts of the people to give you the advice that you need to go with.
Thank you so much for the answer, brother.
But more important than how do you do istikhara, okay, is what do you do after you get your response from God through an istikhara. And I think that that people are playing with fire if they don't abide by it, right? Because it's not a game. If you're going to make an istikhara, then you're entering into a state where you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a question and you're expecting that He responds back. If you believe that He is responding back to you and then you don't go by the answer, you go against it, then you're going to fall into great sin and you might be considered by God to be a hypocrite. So never make an istikhara unless you're willing to abide by it. And we see too many people that make istikharas and then they repeat and they make another istikhara and they make another istikhara until the answer that they're seeking comes out. It don't work like that. It's one istikhara and you go by the, you go by the response that's given to you. Thank you, Hassan. Was that it?
I have 2 more questions.
Sure, go ahead.
The second question I was asked is...
One last thing before we move on to the thing. I just want to also point out that istikhara is only valid in terms of the people that live around the Imam. The istikhara becomes invalid. So if you pledge allegiance to the Imam and you have access to him, that is the only way that you can get a response from God through the messenger. There's no such thing as you living in the time of Muhammad, okay, and Muhammad's standing right there, and instead of asking him your question, right, or what to do, you're like, yeah, it's okay, I got istikhara, and then you're doing your istikhara and doing, because in a case like that, the person who will respond to you in the istikhara will no longer be God, it will be the devil. So the istikhara only works up until the point that you have access to the messenger.
Makes sense.
Are we clear?
Yes, makes sense, absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, the other question is that people were asking if you guys say the Quran is corrupt, then can the will not be corrupt as well? Like,
if we're saying that the Quran is corrupt, could the will not be corrupt as well. The problem with the notion of the will being corrupt is that there is no longer any sort of religion. It's done. Yeah, it's over. It's over. Why? Because if the will is corrupt, it means that nobody on the planet now knows or has a way of knowing who are Muhammad's true successors. Okay? And if there's no way of identifying Muhammad's true successors, then there's no way that God can legally, rightfully, justly punish or hold anybody to account. Do you understand? So there always has to be a way to identify the proof of God in that time, in that day, in that age, or else the words of Muhammad where he says, whoever dies and doesn't know the Imam of his time has died the death of ignorance, that would no longer apply. And people would no longer be in a test, and the whole thing would not make sense, and Islam would be false, and Christianity would be false, and Judaism would be false, and the whole thing all the way back to Adam would be false. Religion in its entirety, in its entirety comes back to the concept of the will. This idea that God appoints very clearly for everybody his successor. He appoints Adam in front of the angels. He says, I'm making a caliph in the land. He tells the angels, prostrate to Adam. It's very clear in front of everybody, right? And the same thing happens successor after successor after successor. Adam appoints Abel, right? And God accepts the offering of Abel, right? That's why Cain was upset, and he ends up killing Abel, and the new successor is appointed, Seth. And each prophet and each messenger that comes, he makes clear his successor. Moses clearly identifies Aaron as his successor and Joshua, son of Nun, as his successor, right? After the death of Aaron, alayhi salam. You have Jesus in Christianity, right? Clearly identifying Simon Peter as his successor, right? And you have Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam clearly identifying Imam Ali alayhi salam as his successor, and as such. So the idea of the will, it's extremely important. It's the basis and the foundation of religion, and without it, we have nothing, actually. And if you think about it, all those people that don't believe in the will of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they're in a state of confusion. They become part of the black mass that the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam spoke about. Those barbarians, the people that are like animals, rather they're more astray. Those who are in confusion, each and every one of them interpreting the Quran and its verses and the hadiths in its own way. And that's why you have Muslims fighting against Muslims. And Muslims who believe in Muhammad and say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, killing and slaughtering other Muslims who say the exact same thing, because each and every one of them has their own ideas that they're following and their own imams, and they're not gathered upon the person whom Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had appointed. Jesus said what? And we spoke about it in another video. He said, I am the light of this world so long as I am in this world. Yeah? So after Jesus passes away, he's no longer the light of this world. There has to be somebody else who takes his place, right? So the will preserves for all mankind, right? It identifies for all of them who is that light that we must, follow. It is the letter of appointment, right? There's no messenger that can come forward from one country to another country without carrying like a letter of appointment, that's sealed, something that's written by the king, by the president, by the prime minister, which proves that he really speaks on his behalf. The same thing here. The hujjah always has to come with the will, and that's why the will is protected from misguidance. That's why the Prophet Mohammed sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gave a promise on his deathbed, and he said, give me a paper and pen, and I will write for you that which if you hold on to it, you will never go astray, right? So if you hold on to the will, it's a protection against misguidance. It's the only way to identify who the Imam of the time is. And that is why the will, it is impossible that it can be corrupt or it can be forged or even claimed by a false claimant. And that's why we have hadiths from the Ahl-Bayt that state that if somebody falsely claims the will, God will cut off their life, right? And that's why in 1400 years, nobody has ever claimed to be Ahmad in the will except for Ahmad Al Hussain, because it was protected from that time all the way till now. Nobody else has claimed to be Abdullah in the will except for Abdullah Hashem, because it was protected against misguidance. So then when Ahmed comes and Abdullah comes, we know for a fact that we can believe in them and support them, you know, with full certitude, because the will is a protection against misguidance.
It's amazing. Thank you for the answer, Father. There, the last question I had is like they're saying that what are the true verses of the Quran that mentions reincarnation?
There are many verses in the Quran that speak about reincarnation. There's so many of them. Ones that talk about reincarnating into animals, and others that speak about reincarnating into human form, right? And verses even that speak about reincarnating into inanimate objects. Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam in Al-Hafj al-Sharif, he mentions of all these verses that speak about these. For example, there is a verse that says, be iron, right? Be iron is a reference. Imam Al-Sadiq, in his interpretation of that verse, he says that this is speaking about the disbeliever being reincarnated into stone or iron or an inanimate object, right? There's another verse in the Quran that says it is as if they are being driven to death while they look, right? This verse is about the individual who ends up reincarnating into the form of a cow or a lamb or a sheep or something like that, and is being drugged, right? And there's references in the Quran about the day that all of them shall be gathered, or verses that are speaking about the raja of the believers. I recommend that anybody who's looking for, seriously, to study the idea of reincarnation in Islam, that they look no further than Al-Hafj al-Sharif, which I personally translated. I'm the only one who has translated it into English, and we're going to be re-releasing it on our website here in a few days. So inshallah, everybody can have access to it for free. Thank you, Hassan.
Thank you so much, Father.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, Nadine?
It's a great moment. I'm standing in front of Hujjatullah, Qaim Al Muhammad, salawatu rabbi wa salamu alayh. And we're asking him, and he answers us. One of the most popular question we face up, there is a verse in Quran, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. So the question, from where you got the 7 covenant and why you changed the basic of Islam, like the hijab? And this is the question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful question. Thank you, Nadine, for asking that. So the verse that you are referring to is a verse that came down, right, at the appointment of Imam Ali alayhi salam at Ghadir, right? It's when the Prophet Mohammed sallallahu alaihi wasallam held up the hand of Imam Ali in front of 70,000 Muslims, and he said to them, whoever I'm the master of, Ali is his master. And he says, oh Allah, be a guardian for all those who take Ali as a guardian, and be an enemy to all those who are an enemy to Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. So then this verse came down. Today I have completed for you your religion. Why? Because the da'wah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the religion of Islam, had been completed with the successful public appointment of the successor, the rightful heir to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay? So it's the idea that the Prophet was able to publicly appoint. This is the completion of religion, because religion continues through the Imam of the time, right? So Imam Ali alayhi salam, he became an embodiment of this completion, right? Because he opened the door to Al Hassan and Al Hussain and to the Imams after that and to all of the Hujjas, all of the successors that would come after Imam Ali alayhi salam. Now, you're saying they ask like, and they're speaking about the verse in the sense of, okay, Islam is complete now with its laws. This is not what it means. It's complete by the appointment of the successor, not complete by the establishment of its laws. Okay? Because the religion itself, okay, is a man and it's not a book. If it's a book, if the Quran is that which we had to follow, then there's no book that is more misguiding than the Quran. There's no book that would lead people astray more than the Quran, right? And we've seen that with our very own eyes. Not because the Quran itself is a book of misguidance, but because the fallible interpretation of the people who claim to be Muslims lead other people astray. Because it's a book that needs a companion. That's why the Prophet Muhammad said that the Quran and my Ahlul Bayt, they'll never separate from one another until they meet me at the pond of Al-Kawthar, right? Because the book needs a companion. Without one another, it doesn't work. Okay? So, seventh covenant, where did it come from? It came from the breaking of the Muhammadan covenant. When did it break? It broke when the Prophet Muhammad said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves whoever loves Al Hussain. It broke when the Prophet said that, and when he said, Al Hussain is from me and I'm from Al Hussain, and the Muslims responded by chopping off the head of Imam Al Hussain, sticking it on a spear, and marching it through the lands of the Muslims in all arrogance and in all pride. It was broken when they ripped off the hijab of Zainab and abused her physically. When they put the head of Imam Al Hussain alayhi salam on the ground after it had been decapitated, so that his own daughter, Ruqayya, weeps over it until she passes away from the shock. It was broken with the poisoning of Imam Al Hassan alayhi salam before that. And the fighting and the wars that were committed against Imam Ali alayhi salam, which ended in the end with Abdurrahman ibn Muljam cracking him upside the head while he was in a state of prostration. The covenant with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam between Muhammad and the Muslims was broken with the murder of Imam Zayn al-Abidin and Muhammad al-Baqir and Ja'far al-Sadiq by the Umayyads and the Abbasids, by the murder of Musa Kazim and Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, Muhammad al-Jawad and Ali al-Hadi and al-Hasan al-Askari, to the point that they chased the 12th Imam, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, and sought to kill him even though he was only 5 years old. So the bloodthirst, the hatred against Muhammad's family was the reason why the covenant was broken. You can't claim to love Muhammad and you hate his children and you hate his family and you murder them and then you pray 2 rak'ahs and you put on your hijab or you fast a month of Ramadan or you pay 10 pounds in zakat a year or you go and you take selfies at the Kaaba and you claim to be a Muslim. That stuff don't work. That's worth nothing. That's hypocrisy. That's the definition of hypocrisy. And that's why the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, they said, woe to a nation that murders the son of its prophet. Even the narrations which speak about Karbala, they spoke about how there was even a Christian priest who was present at the time. He was so disgusted by the actions of the Muslims, he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that these people were claiming to be lovers of Muhammad or followers of Muhammad, and they do this to the grandson of their prophet. Such an atrocity was unheard of. And so that covenant went into the trash. That covenant was broken. That curse came down upon this nation. And the Muslims have been at war with one another. The entire globe is green and healthy, and except for that strip of land of the Middle East and North Africa. They've been enslaved, like the children of Israel, to all kinds of tyrants that are worse than Pharaoh and Haman and Nimrod as a punishment for what they did. They're the ones that are mentioned, the Arabs and the Persians, who are mentioned on the tongue of the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam as being the number one enemies of the Mahdi when he emerges. And so the Mahdi, when he comes forward, the narration states, he has to demolish everything that came before him. Because everything that came before him was what? 1,200 years of the Muslim nation living without an imam, and so many sects and schools of thought, right? And terrorist organizations and other people that were using the religion for their own benefit were born. So many misguided sects. So he has to destroy all of that, and he has to return the religion to its basis. And its basis is salvation through following the appointed leader. And that appointed leader in every day and age has the power and the vested authority from God to change the jurisprudence according to the circumstances that he's living in. Just like Noah brought a new jurisprudence than the jurisprudence that Adam was upon. Noah was allowed to eat meat. Adam was not, and all those who followed Adam up until Noah were not. And when Abraham came, he brought something new too. He brought circumcision. And when Moses came, Moses brought 613 new commandments and laws. And when Jesus came, he too adjusted the jurisprudence and came with something new, and there was a new covenant that was born. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came, he brought a new covenant, and he changed the direction of prayer from Jerusalem to Mecca. And he established the 5 prayers, and he made obligatory fasting in the month of Ramadan. And he made obligatory pilgrimage to the Kaaba and zakat. And the same thing happens when the Mahdi comes, the Qaim. He too comes with a new jurisprudence and a new book and a new matter for the people. A matter which is appropriate for a new people who are willing to enter into a covenant with God, and a new form of Islam which is appropriate for that age. Does that cover your question? Thank you so much, Nadine. God bless you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Al-Sadiq.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Do I have permission to speak?
Of course, thank you so much.
Thank you, Al-Sadiq. Basically, the follower of Al-Sayyid Shirazi from Bosnia is asking how could Imam Hussain, alayhi salam, in his return before the 12th Imam, if as he says that the narration says, say that basically Imam Hussain is the one who will bury the 12th Imam.
Yeah. Well, if it says that Imam Al Hussain alayhi salam is going to bury the 12th Imam, then it must mean that Imam Al Hussain alayhi salam was present, alive, and one of the companions of the 12th Imam, or else why would the companions and the people allow that this unknown individual come forward and bury the 12th Imam, right? And there's also another very important narration that states that the people, they consider they are in a state of doubt about Imam Al Hussain alayhi salam in the time of the Raja. And they're unsure if he's a Dajjal, an Antichrist, right, or a devil. And death, the narration says, does not come to the 12th Imam until their hearts are at peace that he is Al Hussain alayhi salam. So this means what? In this narration, we see that Imam Al Hussain alayhi salam is identified and he's known, and the 12th Imam does not die until everybody believes, admits, are at peace with the fact that he is Al Hussain alayhi salam. Which means that at one point they weren't at peace, right? And that's what it's talking about when it says that they think he's an Antichrist or a devil. So there must be a period where this character, Al Hussain alayhi salam, has a da'wah, where there's claims that are being made about him that he's Al Hussain, and that people are reluctant, and the people are broken down into groups. There's some people that believe that he is Al Hussain, other people don't, and even those who believe are sometimes unsure. And that's what we see right now with this da'wah. It's the first da'wah in 1400 years, right? Where we have somebody who's claiming the will of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, who is Ahmad al-Hassan alayhi salam, and at the same time identifying himself as Al-Hussain, son of Ali, in his return, in his reincarnation. That's never happened before, and it will never happen again. And that itself is a miracle, and it's proof that this is the truth, and that he is who he says that he is. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you so much, Abba Said.
God bless you.
Assalamu alaikum, Father.
Wa alaikum salam, Almas.
The question that I noticed that pops up a lot is, why do we have the symbol, the Star of David, and what does it represent?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. That comes up a lot, and I know that you're one of the workers on the channel, you and your husband, Qaim. God bless you guys, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you always happy together. So, the Star of David is looked upon as some sort of Zionist symbol, right? The Star of David is looked upon as a Jewish symbol, right? But yet people forget that Muslims believe that David was a prophet. And we also believe that Muhammad was the final messenger, and he was the inheritor of all of the prophets and the messengers, right? So he inherits religion from them. He inherits their authority. He inherits all of their symbols and all of their knowledge and everything that they came with. And the narrations state that the Mahdi, when he comes forward, right, or the Qaim, he has with him the ring of Solomon, and he has with him the staff of Moses, and other narrations say that he uncovers the Ark of the Covenant, right, and brings it forward, and it's a big reason why a lot of Jews end up believing in the Dawah. The same thing applies here. The Star of David is our symbol. Just like the name Israel is a name that also belongs to us. It is the name of a prophet. It's a name that we should call our children by, and we should be proud to have that name amongst us, because Israel is one of the names that Jacob was given, and it's his name as mentioned in the Quran, right? And so Israel is our name, and the Star of David is our star. And it is our symbol, and we raise it because it is a representation of the universe. And there's other secrets also that are involved around it, but that's in general why it is that we have that symbol as the sign of our covenant, because it is a symbol which represents the physical shape of the known universe, or the universe that's ever expanding, that's actually unknown in its entirety. But that is its shape.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you so much, Almas.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بداية أنقل لك تحيات وسلام جميع الأنصار في العراق ينتظرون اليوم اللي يلتقون بجنابك سيدي.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. إلى كل الأحبة في العراق.
شكرا أيها الحبيب. سيدي سؤالي احنا تعرف لدينا مناظرات وحوارات كثيرة مع أتباع الفقهاء. يقولون لماذا الإمام المهدي يقف بالضد من رجال الدين، ورجال الدين هم لم ينحرفوا وما زالوا على الصراط المستقيم. هم يدعون أنهم لم ينحرفوا ويقولون أنه الإمام المهدي سلام الله عليه لماذا صاحبكم لماذا يقف بالضد من رجال الدين، وأنتم تقف خلفكم أيادي خفية تريدون اسقاط الفقهاء. هذا السؤال دائما يتكرر انا ومع الدكتور علي، يتهموننا احنا نحمل غل او حقد ضد الفقهاء، وليس انه هذا امر الله وهذا امر الامام المهدي سلام الله عليه، وانه رجال الدين قد فعلا خالفوا اهل البيت عليهم السلام وانحرفوا عن الصراط المستقيم.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that very important question. Abbas is saying basically that there's a question that he usually faces a lot. Him and Dr. Ali when they're online or when they're talking to people about the dawah. And the question that they keep facing is, why are you guys so opposed to the religious scholars? It seems like you guys have some hidden hands or forces behind you that are trying to discredit the scholars in order to accomplish some sort of evil agenda, right? And I think that's a fair question. They say, why do you guys have all this hatred in your hearts against the scholars? And the answer is very simple. It's because we consider that all the evil that's taking place in the world today, the source of it are these scholars. We charge these scholars with every single sin that's taking place right now on the planet. We charge them for all of the catastrophes, the humanitarian crises that are taking place on the planet. We consider the scholars of misguidance to be the greatest impurity that walks on the face of the earth. And the reason why is because they're the stones that Jesus spoke about that prop themselves in the middle of the stream, and they don't drink any of the water, nor do they allow the water to flow through to those who want to drink. They are the greater antichrists, right, in the region that claim to be the spokespersons for Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, yet they have no authority and they don't represent them in any sort of way. They are the ones that encourage the people to turn away from Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, and they issue fatwas telling the people that they must obey the tyrannical leaders in the region, that they must participate in elections to elect and place into power people that were not appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They change the entirety of religion. They promote evil. They promote vice. They participate in things behind closed doors. Every action of theirs is the opposite of that which comes out of their mouths. The people that they preach to, many of them will end up being saved because they do by their words and they don't do by their actions. They are hypocrites of the highest levels. They are the people that are mentioned by Muhammad and the family of Muhammad as being the most evil of creation underneath the sky. Ahmad Al Hussain, he said something incredible in one of his speeches. He said what? He said that you should ask Muhammad and the family of Muhammad what they said about the scholars of the end times before you ask the scholars of the end times about Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. And if we go to the narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, we find them being described as more dangerous upon the Shia than Yazid, son of Muawiyah. We find them being described as more dangerous upon the believers than the Dajjal. And it doesn't take a genius to witness and see how much corruption they are behind these days. The person who curses them gets close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The person who declares themselves innocent of them becomes more beloved by Allah and His messengers. There's no deed in this day and age that is more beloved to God than to expose these false hypocrites whom are actually demons in the flesh. The Prophet Mohammed he said that the shayateen are of two kinds. One kind is a type which is jinn, right? And another type of shayateen are the shayateen of al-ins. And the shayateen of al-ins are these non-working scholars who come and they take the people off of the path of God, take them off of the straight path and lead them astray, because that is what the agenda of the devil always was to take people, remove people from that straight path, to remove them from pledging allegiance to Imam Ali alayhi salam and the Imam of the time. So our enemies are the scholars of misguidance. Now, having said that, there are some scholars who, like Al-Hurr in Karbala, will end up turning around and pledging allegiance to the Mahdi, right? But the majority of them are the sworn enemies of the Mahdi. And they're the ones, by the way, who issued the fatwas against Ahmad Al Hussain and declared him to be a heretic. And they're the ones that said that his blood was halal. And they're the ones that attacked and imprisoned and tortured his followers even though they were committing no wrong. They're the ones whom are today issuing fatwas against our peaceful followers. For what? Because we said that our religion is open to all people, even LGBTQ people. In Malaysia, they issued fatwas out and they chased are believers outside of their own country that they lived in their whole life and that have their family members and they wish that they could continue living there in peace. They're the ones that have oppressed and imprisoned our brothers in Algeria and issued fatwas against them. They're the ones whom sat in an entire documentary produced by the state of Iran, which was basically a slander and a hit piece against me and against Ahmad Al Hussain and against all of you. For what? What did we do? Me and Ahmad Al Hussain, we never even spoke about the non-working scholars until they started first. But that is the reason, because they hate truth, because they're the spawn of Satan. Lanatullah alayhum, and lanatullah on everybody who follows them. They're tools for the tyrants. The Prophet Mohammed he said, if you see the scholar leaning at the door of the king, then woe to the scholar and woe to the king. Reject the scholar and reject that king. Both of them are bad. Both of them are horrible. Anytime you have a king or a president or a prime minister who's controlling the religious authority and voice in the country, both of them are bad. They're in cahoots with one another. Lanatullah on both of them. He said, but if you see a king at the door of the religious leader, the king's the one who's going to the priest or to the pope or to the messenger, asking for his, what is it that I should do? How can God be pleased with me? Then accept that king and accept that scholar. And in the world today, we have no examples of the second kind. We have no worldly king or priest or prime minister, president or prime minister who is at the door of any sort of priest or imam or rabbi, yet we find all of the rabbis and all of the priests and preachers and all of the imams and sheikhs of misguidance, they are all employed by the state, employed by the government, tooting the horn, right? And drumming the drums for who? For the fake government that's in power. They are used by the government to keep the people in chains and to make them feel like if they disobey the government, they're going to be disobeying God Almighty. And that is the greatest deception that the devil did, because if it wasn't for them, the people would have rebelled a long time ago against Yazid, and they would have rebelled a long time ago against many of the tyrants that are in the world today would have never had a chance at power if it wasn't for these non-working scholars. So that's the reason, that's our problem that we have with them. Thank you so much, Abbas. And send my salams and my love to all of the brothers and the sisters that are out there in Iraq. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to gather them with us, inshallah, soon. God bless you, and thank you for your years of service. This man right here, who out of his faith, he left many years ago his home country, and he hasn't seen his mother. How many years has it been now, Abbas? 10 years. 10 years you haven't seen your daughter either, huh? God bless you. Assalamu alaikum. And thank all of you guys. I appreciate you guys being here tonight, and inshallah we'll continue on another night. God bless you.
Thank you.